Okay, good day, everybody, and thanks to CIEX for allowing us to give this presentation. Of course, in a particular way because of COVID. I'll be speaking about advanced recycling, chemical recycling, as we call it in Europe. But I do like the proposed term by ACC to use advanced recycling through waste gasification, and this is a joint development between Enerkem and Nova Chemicals. I'm Peter Niemenhuizen. I'm Vice President, Technology Strategy and Deployment at Enerkem. I'd like to give you a bit of an introduction about Enerkem, about the technology, and also, of course, introduce our partner, who is not here today, Novachem. We'll spend a bit of time talking about the landscape of advanced recycling, and then we'll really go into the project outline. What are Enerkem and Nova doing together, and what are some considerations that we need to take into account? It's a pretty interesting project from a chemistry, but also from a sales and marketing perspective. This is really a win-win platform, so it's not just about Enerkem and Nova. In fact, we would be open to have other partners joining us, and I'd like to end, of course, with a Q&A. Starting with Nova, one slide. Nova is $4 billion polyolefin producers, a lot of ethylene, which they make, headquartered in Canada. You can see some of the mission and the value statements. What I can attest is that Nova are very proactive in innovation, and they're also known for their commitment to responsible care. In fact, they are one of the co-founders of Responsible Care, and I think the project that they're doing together with us is really a testament to that commitment. Enerkem, rather different from established Nova. We are a startup, although we are a startup that already exists for 20 years. Our solution, our product, if you wish, is recycled carbon. So that's what we are here for. We're here to take carbon that is present in waste, municipal solid waste. It may also be present in plastic waste. And it may be available as biomass, let's say chopped up trees or straw. We put that in a proprietary thermochemical process, gasification. And out of these feedstocks, we then produce, in first instance, syngas. So that's really our primary product. It's also a product that, of course, in the chemical industry, we all know very well. It's a very flexible platform that can be turned into many different products. What Enerkem did was, in first instance, turn that into methanol, which is a very efficient reaction. We have a 70% carbon conversion, so the carbons in the feedstock, for 70%, we can turn that into methanol. And our second product is ethanol. First, focused on transportation fuel. So there's a lot of interest, as you may imagine, 5 years ago in second generation ethanol. More and more, we're also seeing the interest coming from the chemical industry in plastics and in renewable chemicals. And maybe one more point here on the feedstock. The feedstock flexibility of our thermochemical process is really a differentiating feature. So indeed, we can go all the way from biomass on one side, trees or straw. We can go all the way to plastic waste. It all fits in. Any type of plastic fits in there. So not just sorted olefins, PE and polystyrene, but we can also take in PVC, no problem. We can also take in PET. We can also take in polyurethanes. And of course, you'll appreciate that solid waste is right in the middle, right? It is a mixture of biomass and plastic waste. Standard household waste is really proven capability. So the company has gone since the year 2000, when we were established at the university and then spun out, setting up our own demonstration facility in Westbury, and then building a commercial demo in Edmonton in Alberta. 200 employees, more than 600 million invested since 2000. And it's really the Edmonton commercial demo that has validated our waste to biofuels process at commercial scale. So we have over 10,000 hours cumulative operation making syngas and making methanol, and we've produced almost 4 million liters of the IMPCA grade, the proper grade of methanol, from biomass, from municipal solid waste, but also from plastics. Switching to the landscape for advanced recycling. So it's just a couple of points as a background, but a lot of this, I think in this audience is pretty well known. The plastics value chain, the plastics companies, the plastics customers with governments are really driving towards a significant increase of recycled content in plastic. So where previously we could all sell virgin plastics made from gas and made from oil, the expectation by 2025 is a significant content of recycled plastic in there, more than 25%, and that will increase from there on. And this is all driven, of course, by public concern about waste. And if anything, with COVID, with the corona issues, we see an increased requirement to drive these targets, even while, of course, we all realize that plastics are very helpful products as we deal with this pandemic. Interesting point here is NGO concern. Of course, that is one element, but what NGOs have lately been further concerned about is that we see some projects where plastics is pyrolyzed and then it is turned into fuels. And from an NGO perspective, that's really delayed incineration, and what they would like to see is true recycling. So just like for paper, when we took paper in the 70s and in the 80s and started to recycle, incinerating that paper for energy capture is not good enough. You need to take paper and make new paper, and it's the same with plastics. We need to take those plastics and we need to turn them into recycled plastics, not into fuels. And then on the technology side, I think it's fair to say mechanical recycling, if it's possible, is always preferable. It has a very low carbon footprint. It has low cost. But we also know that with mechanical recycling, after 2, 3, 5 turns, the polymer degrades, and therefore advanced recycling technologies are necessary to really regain the virgin grade. However, this is far from optimal. So the conclusion of NOVA and Enerkem together is that rapid innovation is essential to develop more recycled content plastics through advanced recycling, and that will really complement and grow a capability beyond mechanical recycling. An overview of the different categories. So if you go on the left side, where we start with refined hydrocarbons, then petrochemicals, then we make the monomers, then we make polymers, the plastic products and packages themselves, and then we end up with the waste. If we look at recycling, and the first loop is mechanical, I already talked about that. You could then purify polymers. This is something that is possible for polyolefins. Decomposition, which is more likely for PET, and then conversion. And conversion is what we're talking about here. So we're gasifying waste to make syngas and turn that back into petrochemicals. Pyrolysis is also one of the solutions for conversion. The NOVA and Enerkem collaboration, the objective here really is to develop new advanced chemical recycling technology based on the Enerkem gasification technology, and with the aim to transform hard to recycle municipal waste, degraded polymer that cannot be mechanically recycled anymore, to transform that into ethylene, and we want to do that at full commercial scale. This is enabled by the commercial scale of Enerkem gasification and with low carbon footprint by 2025. So that's an ambitious goal, but we also think that it is realistic. The overall concept that we're going after is we will be looking predominantly at municipal solid waste. We can look at plastic, we can look at biomass as well. I indicated that the Enerkem technology will deal with that, but the focus here also from how we will market this and how we will bring this into the market is to take municipal solid waste. We will make a circular syngas, and then we will take a syngas to ethylene process with the addition of hydrogen, because that is typically what we need when we gasify MSW. And we will make a circular ethylene. And because there is about 50% bio content in municipal solid waste, I think of paper bags, I think of all kinds of peels and food waste. About 50% of that ethylene is also biogenic. Most likely we will have byproducts, other olefins, maybe paraffins, and this is where the collaboration with Nova is important, because we'll try to valorize that in the petrochemical cluster. We have 3 possible routes. I already told you that we're making ethanol from syngas at Enerkem. And of course, what we could do is we could dehydrate the ethanol, and that would deliver a very high purity ethylene. This, however, has the highest capex and opex of the 3 routes. In the middle, you see the methanol to olefin. So we'll take our syngas, make methanol, and then we would really have to scale down the traditional methanol to olefins process. And this makes a mixture of ethylene, propylene, and butylene. And then the 3rd route, which is our specific technical focus, is really to produce ethylene directly from syngas with suitable catalysts. We know that this will produce a product slate, so both paraffins and olefins that we will then have to purify and that we will have to valorize in the petrochemical complex. But we also know that this has the lowest capex and in fact the lowest opex. So that's an important target. As we do this work, so I just want to take you along with some of the things that we need to take into account, that we need to consider for this particular development. So the first one is actually the feedstock. The amount of fossil and bio-based carbon. So again, this is waste. So you have your plastic waste, which is fossil waste, and you have your bio waste, the peels, the paper bags. That co-determines the value of downstream products. And we can imagine that if we're making ethylene, that perhaps the bioethylene in certain markets is more interesting than the circular ethylene. And then we touch upon an important fact, and that is that we will be expecting to use the mass balance approach. So obviously, if we put in MSW on the front end and that mixture of bio and fossil carbon atoms, we cannot separate that in the syngas downstream. But we can administratively, of course, say, well, we had 50% bio content, and therefore our ethylene downstream will also be 50% bioethylene, and we can market it as such. Carbon intensity, we need to consider. In general, the carbon intensity of the product is determined by the feedstock. Of course, what do we put in there? But also utility. So if we're using fossil gas, if we're using gray electricity derived from coal or gas, if we use hydrogen, which can be gray from steam methane reforming, or it can be green when we make it by means of electrolysis and green electricity. All those factors combined determine the carbon intensity, and you will appreciate that, of course, we're aiming for a low carbon intensity or as low as possible. We need to think about government support. Biofuels are heavily regulated and supported by government. Just like biofuels, these circular chemicals that we're making will be more expensive, but the support levels are not yet similar, and often it's much more about getting a single project supported and getting very tailored financing. We'll have to talk with governments in Canada, but also elsewhere, how can we get reliable levels of government support for this different way of running the chemical industry. And that brings us also to pricing. Really, biofuels are setting a reference price. So if you can make ethylene from bioethanol through dehydration, then obviously we can look in the market we can look in the market and see, okay, what is the bioethanol price, and from that derive an ethylene price, and that will set a reference level. I'd like to start to round off. What are the benefits of this collaboration? We really think this will propel innovation, speed. So by bringing together complementary expertise at Nova and with Enerkem, we think we can speed up such a development. There are significant technology benefits. So if you look at gasification versus an alternative process to do advanced recycling pyrolysis, we will benefit from a larger scale. We can produce 100 kilotons plants, 100 KTPA plants for ethylene. We can use an abundant feedstock, MSW, whereas pyrolysis will require a sorted feedstock, relatively pure polyethylene, polypropylene, and polystyrene. And gasification has a fit with both naphtha cracking and gas cracking. Pyrolysis makes a liquid, which is very suitable for the naphtha cracker, but gasification directly produces an ethylene that basically bypasses that. It's really about closing the loop. The technology will allow production of ethylene from carbon recycling, which helps to reduce waste to landfill, and it will help to meet that value chain goal that I talked about to get more recycled plastics. And then lastly, I mentioned this at the beginning, when we set up this partnership and we made the joint development agreement, we already allowed for additional partners. So if there's anybody interested in this project, please let us know. And we're also contemplating suitable license options to make sure that if we develop the technology, it becomes available for rapid adoption. I'd like to thank you again. I'd like to thank CIEX, and I'd like to open the floor for questions and discussions.